Good morning, everybody. This is the morning meeting on another busy news day, as they say in the news business. Welcome in, everybody. 6 o'clock last night, we were on the air when President Trump announced the ceasefire. And since then, I can't say nothing's happened, but not much has happened, except the president has headed off to Europe. We'll show you his departure statement in just a moment. We will run through the news of the day schedule, and then we'll kick things around. And then take your questions. If you're here on the two-way platform, please, as some already have, please raise your hand. We'd love to get some first-time folks in. I see some first-time people here. Welcome to the two-way platform. Please raise your hand if you'd like to be in the conversation. And if you're on X or if you're on YouTube, and if you have peace, love, and understanding in your heart, feel free to engage in commentary in the chat there, but don't put smack in the chat because that's adverse to what we stand for, what we believe in, and what we hope to accomplish with this platform. Dan, where were you at 6 o'clock last night?
I was coming out of a meeting in an Uber on my way home, and all of a sudden saw stuff popping up on X, and I smiled. I was like, hopefully this is true.
Sean?
Getting into the show, and then I went from the show to News Nation, and it was sort of like a evening PM news dump.
All right. The president is headed to the NATO meeting at The Hague in the Netherlands. He talked on departure at some length. Here is early Don, President of the United States, at the White House as he's headed to Marine One. Roll tape, please.
Oh.
Mr. President, Israel said ceasefire breaking is intact.
I don't think so, but I'm not happy that Israel's going out now. There was one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after the time limit, and it missed its target. And now Israel's going out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous.
How will you respond if the ceasefire is violated?
I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either.
Are you going to
All I do is play both sides. I'm going now, as you know, to NATO. Some of you are going with me, and I think it's going to be successful. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Are you going to be the agreement? It's a new dawn in the Middle East, thanks to the agreement you managed to achieve. What are your future plans for the region, for Saudi Arabia, Israel, Gaza, the hostages?
Look, you're asking me about women in the Middle East. It's getting a lot better. Things are happening at a high level. As you know, Saudi Arabia's done a really good job. It's coming out far faster than I thought. So we're very happy about what's happening with women in the Middle East.
No, I'm talking about a new dawn in the Middle East that you managed to achieve last night.
Yeah.
The region is going to a new place with this agreement. Can you tell us what's your future plans for Gaza, for the hostages?
It's a new dawn. I appreciate the question. You're very nice. Who are you?
Thank you. I'm Neria Kraus from Israeli Channel 13 News.
Well, we have to have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this morning. I got to get Israel to calm down now.
Did you get to speak with the Prime Minister? Did you talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu last night?
I took everybody.
You urge both sides not to violate the ceasefire, but reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for violating the ceasefire. So
I think they both violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So as soon as I get away from you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay?
Have you spoken to him this morning? How confident are you that Iran's completely demolished?
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job.
Rebuild its nuclear program?
No, Iran will never rebuild its nuclear. From there? Absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished. The B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone.
Iran violated the peace agreement, the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what they're doing. Do you understand that?
Do you have to respond to Iran?
All right, the president, as you see, talked at some length. There are two things we didn't show you from that exchange with the pool. One is he bashed the media, including Comcast, at some length. And then here's the money soundbite, slightly added, slightly censored, that's being played around the world.
You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
All right. Sean, why is the president attacking Israel?
Because he's pissed. He thought he got a deal. He exhibited, I think, tremendous restraint. Yesterday, the Iranians fired those missiles at a base of ours. Again, they gave us a heads up. It was, you know, minimal damage, and I think they needed to save face. And the president could have used that as an excuse to fire back, and I don't think anybody would have thought he was unjustified, but he exhibited tremendous restraint, and he expected the same of Israel, to maintain the spirit of the ceasefire. And for them to go out, I get they're pissed, I get they're upset. He feels like, hey, I went and bombed the heck out of these guys. I did all your bidding, and you guys, the least you could do is maintain the ceasefire or the appearance and the spirit of it. So I get why he's pissed off. I think the Israelis wanted to use that 12-hour period to the full extent that they could. But I understand his frustration. You don't work that hard and get to a place and then watch the allies that you're trying to support do things that might tear it apart.
Dan, Middle East peace deals usually have these last gasp attacks by both sides. It's not uncommon. Do you think that the Israelis will care that the president's mad, or will it affect their actions?
Yeah, I think they will, because as Sean said, Trump helped them out. I mean, I think Trump initially gave them the green light, you know, months ago to proceed with this, and they knew that they have his support. And I think, look, the one thing that was kind of awkward last night, after Trump put it out, was that both the Iranians and the Israelis were initially silent. And usually when you announce a deal, everybody announces the deal. Everyone puts their statements out. Okay, Trump goes first, and then you would have expected Netanyahu and I guess the Ayatollah to put statements out shortly thereafter, but they didn't. So I think, you know, the fact that they kept going back and forth, even after that, was kind of telling. And I was like, oh goodness, I hope that this is not, you know, going to just collapse. But look, if there's a couple last shots on the islands after this thing is over, so be it. Let's hope that's it.
All right, let me run through the...
Mark, can I just be clear? Because unlike you, I do read the chat. I'm reading some of Michael Granhoff's comments here. And I just want to be clear, like, the question that was posed by Mark to me is, why is Trump pissed? I'm explaining it. I'm telling you why he's upset. I understand if you're living in Israel, as Michael and others do, like, hey, your view is screw this. Like, here's what Iran has done. I get it. I'm not telling you it wasn't justified. I'm not telling you shouldn't still be extremely frustrated and wanting to take them out. I get that. I'm trying to explain to you, and I think the ethos of the program is to give people an insight into why things are happening. So I appreciate everything that Michael and the folks on the ground are going through and dealing with. I sympathize with you tremendously, but I want to explain why the president is frustrated.
Yeah. All right. The vice president's in Ohio today, in Lima. Speaking to the Ohio Republican Party dinner. He's got the keynote speaker slot. Very impressive. On the Hill today from the administration, testifying before various committees, Bobby Kennedy, Secretary of Veterans Department, Doug Collins, Kristi Noem is headed to Central America to Panama, a repatriation flight. Focus, of course, in the Senate on reconciliation, which we'll talk about. The Speaker and other leaders hold a press conference at 10 o'clock. Hakeem Jeffries' press conference on reproductive freedom at noon. And the Senate lunches are today because it's Tuesday. Jerome Powell is on the House side testifying today. And of course, today is election day in New York City for the mayor's race, and we'll talk about that. All right. The Economist.
By the way, Mark, can I just say something? Last week, Chuck Schumer did a big thing on abortion. Today, Hakeem Jeffries, like it just...
Yeah. Their pollsters tell them it tests well. And it does.
But it's tone deaf.
Yeah. All right. The Economist, in the wake of the ceasefire, posed 3 questions, and I think they're the right questions. So I'm going to ask you guys all 3. Dan, you first. Number 1, can the ceasefire hold?
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay. Sean?
Absolutely.
Okay. 2, will there be a follow-on diplomatic deal to restrict Iran's nuclear program? Dan?
Well, I think this is the big question, because what we still don't know is, did they kind of eliminate it, let's say, for 10 to 15 years? Like, was it set back that far? Nobody seems to really know. So I would think we have to have some sort of trust but verify here. And that's the big question.
Okay. Sean, will there be now a diplomatic deal to restrict Iran's nuclear and missile programs?
So it's an interesting question. I think there will be an attempt at a deal, and they will all get together, and then Iran will continue to obfuscate it the way they have. I think we got away with a cheaper date on this, meaning that we're not sending them pallets of cash that they're then using to enrich their own uranium. I think we've set them back. I think that we will have meetings. I think that they will then continue to figure out how to find some way to claim that they need commercial grade. So anyway, I think there'll be attempts and meetings and things, and I don't know that they'll actually get any substantial.
But Sean, wouldn't we say though, and Mark, I don't know what you think, that if the Ayatollah remains, there is no verification, and they're still continue to be hell-bent on getting this, that's not total victory for us then. Like, that would be concerning to me as an American.
Yeah, but I think that what'll happen is they'll say all the right things. They'll obfuscate on inspections. So in other words, I think that we'll be able to, we'll be better off than we were. We'll have a better idea than we've ever had, but it still won't be perfect. And so I think we're a lot better off than we have been, and that we ever possibly could have been. And I think that the other thing is, what Saturday night showed to Iran and to the world is that when you back Trump into a corner, he will act decisively. And I don't know how many more times they want to go through with that. There's one thing to have a bunch of meetings over and over again and not play the game. There's another thing to know that there's imminent action that's potentially going to get taken against you.
Well, and the other thing that's changed is maybe this won't sustain, but for now, Israel can hit Iran with impunity.
Yeah.
And the world community will say, well, if they're going to eliminate their capability, that's fine. The last question is, will the Middle East become more stable now? Dan?
Well, I think it just goes to what we discussed. Hopefully, yes, for the reasons that Sean just said, which is that both Trump and Israel have showed that they're not messing around right now, right? And so I think everyone is on guard that Israel in 2 years has taken out Hamas, Hezbollah. They've weakened the Houthis down in Yemen, and they've now basically pummeled Iran. So who's going to pop their head up now? But what we learned in Iraq, what we've learned in Afghanistan, and the history of this region is people pause, but a lot of times they don't stop, and we just don't know what's going to come now next.
I think the difference for me isn't just the kinetic action that occurred. When Iran looked up and saw that nobody was there to support them, not any of the regional folks, Russia, it sent a signal to me that said, okay, maybe next time that someone, whomever acts, we're not going to have the support that we wanted or that we thought we might have. And that it's going to give tremendous pause to anybody who wants in the future to think that they can act or do something and not face a retaliatory strike of that nature.
Just one or two things from both of you. What are you looking for today in this news cycle between now and the president landing tonight? I failed to mention when he lands, he's going to some photo ops and a dinner. He lands at about 7 local time. What are you looking for? One or two things, Sean, you expect to happen today on this?
I think the big question, and we're talking about it, is does it hold, right? So between now and when he lands, is there any additional strikes from either side? Did they get the message? Do they hold? And that's it. Because if it holds in the first 24 hours, it portends well for the next 24 days.
Dan, what are you looking for today? One or two things.
Whether they announce some sort of regional meeting. It sounds like, I think it's Qatar was playing the kind of intermediary. Is there an announcement that Wickoff is meeting with whomever in Qatar on Sunday? In other words, the funnel is continuing to narrow and people are coming to the table.
I assume by the nature of your question, you're limiting it to this circumstance, right? We're not talking domestic yet.
No, just this.
Yeah.
Okay. So the most prominent national security moment for this administration, not counting tariffs up until now, was Signalgate, which was reflective of a very sloppy set of practices, not just by the Secretary of Defense and the National Security Advisor, but the Chief of Staff was on there, the Secretary of State was on there. And this operation was conducted by, as best we can tell, extreme efficiency, secrecy, discipline. So, Sean, does the president like disciplined operations? And if so, why are so many of the things around him undisciplined? It's a serious question. It's not meant to be cute or
No. I think so. Look, think back to the campaign, right? He liked the discipline that Susie and subsequently La Savita brought to it. I think he left to his own accord might not be his style. I think he likes the results and the praise of it. In other words, the operation resulted. This wasn't just a well-executed operation, right? I talked about it yesterday. The element of deception, the storylines coming out of it about how well it was done, the OPSEC that was surrounding it. I mean, it was all generally praised. So what he likes is the praise and the result that come after it. The means by which it got there, which is a well-disciplined, well-coordinated, well-orchestrated, effective operation, was sort of, he doesn't sit back and say, gosh, you know what, from now on, let's do that. But I think he appreciates it because of the result. So if that makes sense, it's almost like he works backwards from the result and says, oh, that was cool the way that went down.
Dan, leaving aside the failure to consult with Congress or to get a congressional resolution, leaving that aside, is there anything on the merits, take the politics out of it, is there anything on the merits that a principled Democrat could oppose about what the president did? And if so, what?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, and look, actually, to defend the Trump people a little bit, Signalgate was a problem because a journalist was accidentally on there.
They were also using Signal.
Okay, but it wasn't like on other issues where, let's say, A and B are arguing, A wins and B gets pissed and goes out and leaks and trash people. Like, it was an accidental, we all found out about it. But they were having, close debates that they all were in a kind of alignment of like, hey, I voiced this opinion. Hey, are we sure? Hey, this is what the president wants. This is what we're thinking. So the process
sorry. Switch to Fox, please.
Sure. Stop defending Trump is what you're saying, Dan.
No, just the president's talking live, I think, on Air Force One.
Done with Russia. It's a shame. 6,000 soldiers died last week. More, 6,500 soldiers died last week. Russia, Ukraine, a war that never would have happened if I was president. So enjoy your flight.
Let me ask you one more follow-up. In your comments just now about Article 5, that will probably make some people in Europe concerned. Can you clarify what you mean? Are you still committed to mutual defense?
I'm committed to saving lives. I'm committed to life and safety. And I'm going to give you an exact definition when I get there. I just don't want to do it on the back of an airplane.
Okay. And one other question on energy. What's your take on the oil price situation right now, and are you concerned?
Great. I love it. It dropped almost $10 yesterday. I put out a statement, get it down, because a lot of people aren't able to do things when the energy goes down. We're going to have a lot less conflict. So it came down, and our energy department's doing a great job. We're drilling like we've never drilled before. We're keeping it down. We're going to keep it down until all these wars are settled. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you.
Okay.
In the United States.
Mark, I think the only thing, by the way, that a Democrat
was an
could
incompetent president.
criticize a
No idea
little
what he
bit
was
about was just Trump kind of ping-ponged all over the place early on in terms of being pretty vocal about we're involved with Israel and this is amazing. Then he kind of clammed up. But, you know, that's just Trump being Trump a little bit. Like he says the quiet part out loud.
Okay, go ahead.
By the way, you could hear, I think that was Jeff Mason from Reuters asking him the question on NATO. I think that's just for what it's worth going forward. That will be he's definitely leaning into something that will be discussed when he lands there. This is again, I think it'll come to light tonight. Trump will start to really lean into NATO and this fake 5% that's being put forward. There is this false perception among the U.S. elites about Trump's commitment to NATO. And I would argue that it's the other way around. The Europeans who pay 30% of the NATO budget want us to do all the heavy work. The Article 5 construct is we all contribute to our own national defenses. We're ready, we're strong, and then we'll have each other's backs. And none of these guys in Europe, Spain in particular, can't, and our neighbors to the north, by the way, Canada, won't uphold their very own commitments. Everybody wants the U.S. to do its work for it, carry the burden, pay the bill. And I think that Trump gets a lot of credit for calling this out because I just don't understand why we, the taxpayers, should be paying for Europe's defense while they get to use their own tax dollars for all their own people. So I hope he's strong again today on this. But there's this false sense about commitment to NATO. It's the Europeans who aren't committed to NATO when they won't pay the bill and uphold their own obligations.
Dan, what happens now when the president lands at NATO after what was just done in the Middle East?
Well, we'll see if he has more to say, but I think before we heard those comments, NATO was going to announce that their members were going to commit to increasing their spending towards that 5% goal. Now, it does sound like some of what they're going to count as military spending might be, you know, a little questionable. But I think if you look at this in the bigger picture, Sean is right. Over Trump's 10 years, he put an issue on the table that at first people were horrified about, meaning, oh my God, is he going to leave NATO? Oh my God, he's demanding too much of these people, to where it is now common acceptance that NATO needs to spend more to their own common defense. And what is our role? And that is an appropriate conversation. So if Trump is going to say something more, I'll be curious. Look, I think the thing that's really that's under the radar, not under the radar, but kind of falling by the wayside is it looks worse and worse for Ukraine by the day. And that is unfortunate, but
Dan, if I can just correct one small thing, they're not even doing what they agreed to do, right?
Yep.
So Canada and Spain in particular, for them to keep telling us what to do. If you and I have a deal that every Wednesday we say, hey, let's go grab lunch together. We'll go together. We'll pay for lunch. And every day at the end of lunch on Wednesdays, you say, hey, do you mind if you pick up the tab? I forgot my wallet. At some point, it's not fair to say, hey, you know, Dan, we had a deal here and you've never upheld it. Like, we're going to lunch every week, but I'm paying the bill. And I think it's right for President Trump to call the Europeans in particular out for not upholding. It's one thing, like I know the current Secretary General wants to go above and beyond, but some of these countries haven't even upheld the basic commitment that was agreed to a decade ago. And it was only because of Trump, you know, his first term, that a lot of them are even close to where they should be. So,
look at it. It really does mean, I think, in the big picture, Germany's going to have to rearm, and Germany is going to have to become the big neighborhood police officer. And I know that freaks everybody out, but it's been 80 years and the world is different. And at some point, Sean, I totally agree with you. And it's jarring. France and Germany and England, we're going back 120 years, are about to become or need to become the neighborhood police officers again.
One last thing I'll just say as a through line, whether it's NATO, tariffs, or this action that we saw in Iran. In every one of these instances, everybody was appalled initially at Trump's approach You can't say that to NATO. You can't do that with tariffs. You can't approach Iran the way that they're doing. In every single case, his non-traditional approach has achieved results. The so-called experts and establishment folks are continuously wrong, and nothing changes, and the president gets results. And I think there is a through line here that this non-traditional approach that President Trump takes to all of these various issues is actually one that works, and that maybe at some point, whether it's the economy or foreign policy, we stop listening to the so-called experts that have had failed policy after failed policy. And I just, two things that stuck out to me in this morning's Axios. With respect to the ceasefire, they wrote this: for a ceasefire, if it holds, could usher in a fundamentally new era for the Middle East and security. So the same people who bashed it are now talking about how it could fundamentally usher in a new era for the Middle East. And then on the economy, this is their headline: stocks absolutely positively don't want to get down. Tariffs, war in the Middle East, rising energy prices. Like, the same people who have crapped all over his policies and predictions about where the economy going are now writing a headline that says, oh my God, markets just can't go down. No matter how much we at Axios cheer for failure, it won't work. It's actually his policies are doing something right. It's amazing that these media folks and these so-called experts are just continuously wrong, and they never get called out for it.
Well, I will just say for the record, I'm not sure on tariffs. Incomplete, but nevertheless.
All right, we've got 3 more topics to get to, and then your questions, and we'll be brisk on these, so please raise your hand, particularly if you've never raised your hand before. Yesterday, speculation that the Middle East situation would hurt the president's chances, perhaps, in passing reconciliation, at least in part because he's distracted. I think most people now think, it's assuming the ceasefire holds, that he goes in with a stronger hand as a hero of the operation and undistracted once he's back from NATO. We talk here quite a bit about 2 prospects. One, that the Senate might roll the House, jam them by passing a version of reconciliation and leave the House no choice but to pass it. And the other is the concept, a fantasy for many, that there'll be a conference committee that would adjudicate differences between the House and Senate bill. Here's Punchbowl News and their reporting this morning. Breaking news, significant to those of us who follow those 2 issues, that in fact, John Thune, according to Punchbowl, does plan to jam the House of Lords, once again saying our way or the highway. During Monday night's Senate conference meeting, Bill Cassidy stood up for his fellow Louisiana Republican, Speaker Johnson, and insisted that the House won't be able to pass what Senate Republicans have been cobbling together, citing the Senate's stricter crackdown on Medicaid provider taxes. Thune responded by saying the House will ultimately accept what the Senate passed, according to 3 senators in the room. We call that jamming. Several GOP senators told us they came away from the meeting, and this interaction in particular, with the impression that Thune is angling to use a substantial leverage to dare the House to reject any Senate-passed bill, especially with the president eager to sign it by July 4. Working in Thune's favor here is the fact that no GOP lawmaker, Sean, are you listening, wants a formal conference or a ping pong between the 2 chambers, which means they keep passing each other's versions of the different versions of the bill till somebody blinks. Republican senators are getting frustrated with the House Salt Caucus refusal to accept a compromise proposal. So, Dan, we all still think it's going to pass. Is there, what would you say the chances are that the House allows Leader Thune to jam them and they simply pass the Senate version?
I think the question is, where is Trump on this? Because I actually think now that, again, assuming the peace deal holds, when there was a bumpy road, the imperative to get this done as soon as possible, have something good to trumpet this summer, I think was even greater. Now they've got something that they can go around and kind of sell for a little bit. The only thing that I think, the only difference I have with this view with Thune is the Salt Caucus can dig in, not agree to it, and if everything ultimately expired, play it out, they win because Salt goes to that everyone gets it back. So I think whatever.
Well, but their constituents' tax rates go up too.
Right, but I mean, I think whatever Trump will decide, I'm either with the House or the Senate. To me, whenever he leans in, they all fold.
So you think if Trump says the Senate's going to jam you, Mr. Speaker, the House can pass it? If Trump says so?
I think he says, give me the whip list and I will wear, they won't get everybody, but they'll get enough.
Yeah. Sean?
Look, by the way, if you, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, the most important person in Washington that no one knows right now is Elizabeth McDonough, the Senate parliamentarian, and she has been ruling committee by committee what's put in and out of this bill. It's the way reconciliation works is quirky and weird. It has to do with not allowing new policy to be made.
Pardon to interrupt. While Sean talks, please put up CNBC so we can see the market open. Go ahead, Sean.
And so the problem right now is that she keeps clawing back things that the Senate needed for deficit reduction, saying that it's policy that they're making, and you're not allowed to do that in reconciliation. It's one of the nuances. And so the level of gimmickry that is going on right now is astounding. I talked about this weeks and probably months ago about the tax provisions, and this is now what's happening with the SALT, the state and local tax deduction, which is if you allow Mark Wayne Mullen, by the way, deserves a gold star for the work that he's doing to try to get this over the finish line. But they are now creating a thing where they're like, well, we'll get it back to $40,000 in terms of a deduction, but you have to have 3 ears, 2 arms, 14 feet, and in order to take the deduction. And so they're creating ways that politically they could say we got it back to $40,000 deduction, but no one would ever be able to take it. I don't think Mike Lawler's going to buy in on it. I will give them credit. They're trying to do as much as they can to get there. You'll find out if the Senate can pass it. The Tom Tillis comments yesterday make it very hard for me to believe that he can be swayed, yes, on the Medicare stuff. So the big hurdle, if Thune gets it through, I think there's a 50-50 chance. But remember, the way this is going to have to happen is you're going to have to get Johnson to agree to pass this like Friday night going into the weekend of 4th of July weekend. I just don't see it. They get an A for effort. It's just, you're really trying to shoot a cannonball through a needle's eye.
Well, and I want to just say too, because I've been very hard on the Democrats. If they pass the Senate version, those attack ads on Medicaid are going to sink so many people. The reason Kennedy and the speaker are saying what they are, one of the states that's going to be hit hardest is Louisiana. It is going to pummel southern states. That is not that is not hyperbole. That is a fact.
Okay, a bunch.
By the way, this reminds me, I should have sold all of my oil stocks yesterday, right when the deal was announced.
It's a good long-term hold. Yesterday, a bunch of court rulings, including one from the Supreme Court on immigration. Sean, which of?
I'm sorry, you froze for a second. What was the? I heard SCOTUS, and then what?
There are a bunch of district court, court of appeals, and Supreme Court decisions on immigration. Which one stands out to you, and why?
I think the deportation one is the biggest one. It allows the president. I mean, for all of this talk about constitutional crisis and due process, the Supreme Court ruled, and it is allowing the president to deport people. And that's what they argued. Now it takes away the talking point on this issue that the Constitution is being upheld and the president can continue deporting people who are in this country illegally. So big win for the administration.
Dan?
I totally agree. And I think we should all agree that Trump cannot be the winner of the week. It's too obvious.
Yeah. All right. New York City mayor's race, some basics. We will not know who wins. We'll know who wins the first round, but for some reason they're going to take till early July to do the ranked choice sort. Don't know how that could possibly be. Now, if the gap is narrow, if Cuomo is ahead but only narrowly ahead after the first round, there'll be wide speculation that he's going to lose. Might not be true. If the gap is big and big, I think more than 5 or 6. People will say, well, Cuomo's probably going to win. We really won't know. And then the other thing to remember is that Cuomo, at least, will almost certainly run in the general election on a different ballot line or as an independent, even if he's not the nominee. Everybody, be interesting to see what happens tonight, but this is far from the last word.
How embarrassing is this for New York, though? Seriously, that with all of the might that's there intellectually and financially.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
Are you asking?
having an abacus.
Are you asking if it's more embarrassing than the number of rats we have in our subway system? No, it's not.
I
but
think
it
the
is
rats
embarrassing.
are more tolerable than not being
Yeah.
able to count votes.
Okay, I want you both to do one thing each, and then we're going to go to questions. The Mondami campaign has been very well run, and his allies have been very smart. And the Cuomo campaign has had all sorts of problems. So, not pertaining to New York, but more generally applicable. If you were lecturing at a political science course or campaign school, what's a lesson from the Mondami side that you would say other campaigns should pick up on? And what's a lesson from the Cuomo side that you think other campaigns should pick up on? Both the campaign and the super PAC. Dan, one of each.
I think Mondami's what he's done well is he's kind of lived off the land and used social media and to have conversations, to make statements, to keep things short, punchy, quick, constantly feed content into the machine. Cuomo's run a campaign like you would have run 30 years ago. Like it's just very traditional and endorsements and formal events and a microphone and I've got a message of the day. And that is when you look at all these people who are going to primary incumbents. And I just go to when Schakowsky just folded the tent because her 26-year-old opponent was starting to do the same thing, building up a huge list, raising money very quickly, feed the machine, feed the machine. It's what Trump does. Truth post.
All right, and what's something the Cuomo side has done badly?
Everything. They did not do any of this. He has not shown that he's different. I think they thought that people would just say, we need Andrew Cuomo. We need a tough SOB to fix the city. And the environment changed.
Sean?
So I agree with Professor Turrentine there. I think that momentum matters. And so I would agree with him like how he's talking about all the tactics. But the bottom line is you want to be surging, you want the momentum, you want the energy. And he has sort of grabbed the AOC energy of New York.
But what's he done applicable to anybody running a race anywhere?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think that like I would go out and find those young whippersnappers, the movers, the shakers. He's not running some massive, inside the beltway independent expenditure operation with high level consultants. He's getting the people on the ground who've got social media accounts, who've got energy, and putting that behind him. Cuomo's the opposite. He's got the big campaign, the consultants, the independent expenditures, the get out the vote effort. As Dan said, rightly so, from outside, he's running a very, very old school traditional campaign. I just don't know that right now in this climate, that's what you want. I will say the one thing that Cuomo's done well, for a guy as scandal plagued as Cuomo is, and for the reasons that he is, I have not heard a peep about all of this stuff. I can't believe that he has gotten a pass on everything that he did wrong between.
Wow, he hasn't on the ground here.
He hasn't gotten a pass.
It's all over the. Well,
yeah.
You probably don't look at the accounts of progressives and others here,
yeah.
but
No,
I also say, Mark,
or anywhere.
Andrew has not been accessible as much.
Yeah.
Like they have kept him back. I think for the reasons we just said.
Yeah,
but you just that's.
I think I failed to mention earlier that the congressional members are being briefed today on Iran, a little late for some taste, but they're being briefed today. All right, here's mine, and then we're going to go to your questions again. Please raise your hand. I think the thing he's done well, I agree with what you guys said. He's been a happy warrior. Yep. Whenever you see him, he's got a smile on his face, and I think that's been incredibly effective. I think in general, people like happy candidates and optimistic candidates. But I think it's cut into a little bit of people's concern about some of his policy positions. And on the Cuomo side, I think they've failed on both the earned and paid media to drive a message about him. Cuomo has been at war with the media the entire campaign, and the New York City press corps does not take kindly to being treated poorly. As Dan, as you said, he's not been very accessible. But the paid media, the super PAC got an infusion of cash, as Sean broke. From Michael Bloomberg, but they only started serious negative ads like in the last 2 weeks. They should have been running negative ads against this guy. I know there's always an argument, you build him up, but if your opponent has got momentum and you've got a lot of money, you've got to spend it to hit the surge protector. And they did until I think if he loses, it'll be too late. And to me, that's the single biggest mistake they made. And every campaign should take note.
I think, Mark, when you started this conversation, to me, that's where I wanted to just end it, which is, to me, the takeaway, if Mondami wins this thing and Cuomo stays in it, I mean, he's like limping till November. I sort of think the takeaway is, do you want to go with the nutty socialist or the scandal-plagued dude? But that to me is not a good place to be either way.
Yeah. Alice, welcome in. Thank you for being part of Two Way. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind this morning.
I live in Brooklyn, New York, and I've been getting nonstop calls from
Mandami.
Mandami, but they're not actually coming to me. Meaning, like, my kids were applied for Youth Corps, and my cell phone number was the one that was being used. I don't know if everyone knows what Youth Corps is. It's a program in New York that they have for teens to be able to be working. Anyways, my boys are like young adults, but all the texts, the calls are all coming through my phone. I'm getting nothing at all from Cuomo.
Yep.
I
Really?
don't really understand.
Do you vote? Have you voted? What's your voting history like in primaries? You voted in primaries?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And who have you already voted, or are you
I already voted
Who'd you-
Cuomo. And I have to tell you that the Orthodox Jewish community was no fan of Cuomo during COVID.
Yeah.
No fan, but
So why'd you vote for him?
the better of the worst.
Yeah.
That's what.
What will happen? Walk us through the general. Do you stay with him after the primary? Do you vote for either Curtis Siwa or Adams or somebody else, or do you stick with him?
I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna see. I don't really have a problem with Adams. I think Cuomo would actually be pretty good as a mayor. I think he did a good job with LaGuardia. I don't think he handled COVID well, but I don't think many people handled COVID well.
Alice, Mandami may not win, but he's obviously captured the imagination and the support from a lot of New Yorkers. What do you think? What's the moment do you think he's matching up to? Why are people supportive of him?
He's reaching to the young voters. Like, I mean, I went to when I did early voting, it was in Marine Park. It was like in this Jewish it wasn't a school, but whatever, it was like a Jewish social hall. There were not as many Jews there, but there were tons of people that don't really look like they come from this neighborhood.
Yeah.
A lot of young people. A lot of young people that kind of look like hipsters.
Yeah.
They're not really typical in my neighborhood.
Are your kids voting in the mayor's race?
Well, one of my kids is in Israel for the year, so they're not.
Yeah.
But the other one, he has not yet voted.
Yeah. And do you know who he is? Is it a boy? I think you said.
He doesn't know yet who he's voting for. He's
Is he open to voting for Mamdani?
Yes, until I spoke to him, and then I actually walked with him to the voting, and I'm like, "What do you mean you're not gonna?" He's like, "Well, I've been getting a lot of stuff on TikTok, social media, Ma. You have to see all these things." He's like, "The only one I really don't like is the one about the supermarket because I think that's stupid." I'm like, "Okay, we're Russian immigrants. I was born in communist Russia, so I had a lot to say to him about socialist supermarkets."
Yeah.
And then he said, I'm just going to wait to vote till Tuesday while we're there, and I'm already voting because I think I might have dissuaded him, but he didn't want to look defeated. So we'll see what happens today if he's going to go vote.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep us posted. Alice,
that was awesome, Alice.
Very, very grateful to you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I think you speak for a lot of people in the city.
Yeah. All right. Diane, welcome in. Thank you for being part of Two Way. Remind people where you are who don't know and tell us what's on your mind today.
Hey guys, I'm from Iowa, Cedar Rapids area, and I just was calling with a question about the reconciliation bill. There's a rumor going around that there's a liability shield or some kind of bailout for Bayer Monsanto and significant increases in the farm subsidies. And the liability shield would be completely unacceptable for me. And the subsidies, it occurs to me that when the government subsidizes something, they express a preference for it. And these 6 commodity crops that they subsidize, they are used for like processed foods and ethanol. Our soil is already severely eroded and affecting our water quality. And the only solution that the chemical companies have is to spray more chemicals on it. We should be investing in our farmers so that they have an off-ramp and produce better products. $75 billion is, I guess, what I've seen. That's a lot of money that you could use to invest in organic regenerative agriculture and kind of have the farmers still be able to do well. So I'm
Diane, forgive
interested in your
me.
thoughts.
What is the liability from?
From cancer lawsuits.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing about the liability shield is if you have a product that you have evidence is safe, you don't need a liability shield from the government if you can prove it's safe.
Look, I think one of the things about a big bill is they tend to cram stuff in that is not as popular on its own, because the theory goes, you're going to focus on the big items and you can't, who's going to stop a bill for one provision, right? So they call it putting ornaments on the Christmas tree. Members of Congress try to get theirs hung on it. So I have not heard that. I can imagine who would be pushing something like that and what interest would be pushing something like that. But it's a great flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if, go ahead, Sean.
Oh, I was just gonna say I agree with Dan. This is one of those things when you pass a 3,000-page bill or whatever it's gonna be, there's gonna be stuff in there that we find out for the next couple months was jammed in there. And I don't think that's the only thing, but I think that you should, to the extent you can, and this is the beauty of the world that we live in today. If you can help find that out, bring it back to the show tomorrow or whatever, like let's find out. It's tough because I agree with that. There's probably a heck of a lot more in there that we don't know about either.
100%.
Yeah, I get information from Zen Honeycutt on Moms Across America. And I guess I would just say we have really high rates of cancer in Iowa. We have the second highest rate of cancer, and we're one of only 2 states that has an increasing cancer rate. I don't know what the polling is on cancer, but I bet it's pretty unfavorable. So
I think
this
it's
is one thing I
unpopular.
would say. Yeah, I think so. I think it's the one provision I would say you're not going to sneak it through and not make some people mad.
Yeah.
Well, the bigger problem that you're bringing up to is I mean, there is this bigger discussion about agriculture that I think we're at some point going to have, whether it's subsidizing ethanol, some of the stuff that we're doing with crops in the ground with chemicals. Everyone wants strawberries and fruit, 365, and they want them to look ripe and pretty, and it's just not how it's supposed to work. And so I think there's a trade-off that we've got to be willing to discuss.
Before we bring Chris Simmons of Georgia in, here's why it takes a week to count the ballots. Someone just texted me and explained it, which I should have known. In ranked choice voting, right? You can't start counting till all the ballots are in, because you can't eliminate someone based on the ballots you have at hand, right? So you have to have every vote in before you can start, and they have overseas military provisional ballots that need to be done. So until all those are in, you can't start, because you might be eliminating people who wouldn't be eliminated if all the votes were in. So that's the answer. Blame it on ranked choice voting. Chris, welcome in from Georgia. Thank you for joining, sir. What's on your mind?
One more reason why that's so stupid. I mean, all of these states that go to ranked choice voting, Alaska leading the way, is a horrible, horrible way to vote.
All right. Chris.
Yeah, good morning, guys. I wanted to have us revisit the conversation that occurred a while back when Mark, you, Sean, and I believe Dan Turrentine were fairly certain that the Democrats protesting the immigration approach in LA was not a good issue for the Democrats. So I'd like to know how you respond to the current slew of polls, not just one, that show that Trump is winning as long as he's deporting criminals, but is losing badly when he extends it past the criminals, which is what the demonstrations were about. So are you guys ready to admit that Trump is losing ground for the Republicans based on the way the immigration rates are being enforced? Or do you still think it's a losing hill for the Democrats?
Well, I emailed you back, Chris, and I'll tell you, I just think polling on this question is not reliable, because it depends on how you phrase it. There's no perfect way.
When it doesn't support your views, Mark.
No, I say that I don't have a view on it, so it's not true. I say that about some.
No,
I say that. I say
on it, Mark. You said it was a bad issue for the Democrats.
Well, I think it is, but I don't have a view on the
that's
policy.
A view.
No, I don't. I think you meant a view on the policy. I will say I think the same thing about polling on. Do you think you should use force in Iran? It depends on how you ask it. There are just some questions that are too nuanced for polling. You say to people, Do you want, your seamstress, your gardener kicked out of the country? They'll say no. But if they say, if you ask, should people who come here illegally be removed? They'll say yes. So it's not a great question for polling.
How
Dan.
much money do people in your business spend on polls, Mark?
Bad polls quite a bit because they don't know how to write questions.
Chris,
Dan.
look, I agree with you. And I have made this point repeatedly on the morning meeting and social media and everywhere, which is because we won't acknowledge that it's good to close the border and it's good to deal with the bad hombres. The public will not often hear us on this conversation of what to do with the 14 to 15 million that are here normally. If in Los Angeles, if we had said it is unacceptable to attack and block ICE agents, full stop, period, all federal personnel, military, ICE, whatever, judges, Capitol Hill police officers, right, who defend the Capitol, must be protected and cannot be harmed. Common sense test says, okay, now, should they be raiding the Home Depot parking lot to pick up painters that paint your house if they haven't committed a crime? I've said this repeatedly. I think we win that argument and the public is with us. And as you say, Trump and his political team know it, which is why they keep talking about bad hombres and pictures of people and tattoos and, muscles, and they want to scare you. But if you said who's extreme and who's pragmatic in this debate, it breaks my heart. He looks pragmatic and we look extreme because we're insane.
Dan, I agree that would be the better approach for the political leaders to use. But what I'm saying is that even though they haven't done that, the polls would suggest that the populace is getting to the right conclusion on their own.
So maybe, but ultimately you have to, an election is a choice. So I can be upset with Trump's policies, but I may not like you to come in, because right now there is a significant faction of our party that is on camera and on record as saying we should defund ICE.
Yeah, I agree. That's stupid.
Sean.
Yeah.
So as I've always said, there's two things. There's the politics and the policy.
Yeah.
Holman has made it very clear that on the politics of this, or on the policy of it rather, that their goal is to round up bad guys. But in the course of rounding up bad guys, if you find people who are in the country illegally, you have an obligation to remove them at the same time. You can't overlook somebody who is in the country illegally when you round up a bad guy. I agree with that. At the end of the day, we are a nation of laws. And if the first act that you make coming to this country is to break a law, I have no sympathy for you. It undermines the system of legal immigration. It undermines the people, the determination and the patience of the people who waded into this effectively and efficiently. And if the Democratic Party wants to be on the side of people who broke the law, God bless them.
Chris, thank you.
Muted.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Mr. Simmons.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
When they find the bad guy, how do they know that the other person that they were not looking for is illegal? And how are they going about finding that out? It sounds like some stop and frisk crap to me. How do they know?
I mean, that's it's a good question. I'll ask some folks at ICE how they know. Do they ask them? I mean, I think that you can legitimately say, do you have ID, as you would during a normal traffic stop or something? And if someone says, no, I don't because I'm not here legally.
What's the probable cause for asking them for ID? They're not doing anything.
Again, Chris, this is where, if we can just admit the other side, this is the conversation that is a much better conversation.
I know.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Good to see you, sir. Sean, what do you have tonight?
We've got two guests. We're on a roll with I got a call. Yesterday was Larry O'Connor's birthday. Obviously, he's filled in.
Happy birthday to Larry.
So distraught. I've never seen a grown man weep. It wasn't crying, it was weeping. And I apologize for missing his birthday. I didn't realize how sensitive he was. Tonight, though, we're going to continue down this road, talking about not just Iran, but where we need to be as a country to prepare ourselves. Chad Robichaud was a recon special forces guy. He's going to come talk about the operation. And then Seb Gorka, deputy assistant to the president for counterterrorism, will be on as well. So big twofer.
Okay. I'll tell you about a number of two ways. 6 o'clock tonight, two-way tonight. We'll talk about the mayor's race, but we'll focus also on Iran and the president's arrival for the NATO summit. And then tell you who our guests are a little bit later, but join us tonight at 6. At 7, Michael Moynihan, this is going to debut on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Moynihan Report. Michael is joined by Haviv Rediger, senior analyst for the Times of Israel, to talk about Iran. So join Michael then. 7:30, second episode of Cancer Decoded. We're Dr. Patrick Soon-Shiong and I are delighted to Stephen A. Smith will join us. Stephen A. Smith had a close relative pass away from cancer. We're going to talk about how to cope with a relative who gets cancer and help them battle it. And then if they lose the battle, how to deal with the aftermath of that for a family. So please join us. Second episode of Cancer Decoded, 7:30 Eastern. You can join on the two-way platform if you'd like to ask a question. Go to twoway.tv and sign up to get the registration. Or you can watch live on YouTube or on X. And of course, you can watch on demand. And we are very pleased with the first episode and the reaction to all of you. But someone in your family has cancer to help fuel the fight against this for everyone. Again, that's 7:30 tonight. And then tomorrow at noon, Meghan McCain's interview with the Second Lady, Usha Vance. It's great. I told you yesterday, I've never seen an interview like this with a first lady or a second lady. Meghan asked her a lot of really probing questions about her life and her history and her attitudes about things. And it is extremely interesting and extremely revealing for someone whose previous interviews have not been particularly revealing for a variety of reasons. But in this case, she gave Meghan over an hour and they have a great conversation. So I'd urge you to make time tomorrow noon. And of course, you can watch it on demand, but it will premiere tomorrow at noon on Citizen McCain. Grateful to you all for watching. Sean, how well do you know your former neighbor, Usha Vance?
Not well. No, I know JD. Yeah. No, I, by the way, I will tell you one quick funny story now that it's over. The day that I was doing that outdoor shot, I don't know, a couple of weeks back, it was right outside. There was a whole, the kids, the Vance kids have obviously Secret Service protection. And I just assumed all the vehicles were there. But the entire time we were doing the show, all the vehicles were out there. That was Usha that was inside. I didn't know it until I walked out of the school. I thought they were all there for the kids. But we could have grabbed her right then.
Yeah. Could have busted Meghan's exclusive. I will say, I know so many people who know JD Vance and know him well and text with him and call him JD and find it both funny and interesting that their friend's vice president. Very few of them know her. Some do, but very few of them know her. And she's an incredibly accomplished person. Dan, what do you think of Usha Vance before seeing the interview?
I mean, I don't know much about her. The little that I do, and the fact that their kids seem to be protected and cared for and are having some semblance of a normal life, I give both her and him credit. I'm very curious to listen to this. I said it on social media this morning to flag for people to watch, and it's always great to get to know people.
Yeah, I recommend it to you. I'm telling you, it's an incredible interview. Later today, another episode of Next Up, my video podcast on the Megyn Kelly Network, will drop. My guests are Rachel Bade, the Capitol Hill Bureau Chief of Politico, and Sage Steele, the host of the Sage Steele Show and one of the fiercest and kindest people I've ever met. And I'll have a little bit to say about.
A lot taller in person, by the way. I don't know if you. She's a lot taller. I mean,
she can cuff dunk over me if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
And I'll have more to say about how the Democrats have reacted to Iran and President Trump's actions on the show as well. And that will be available to you on YouTube and as a podcast later today. Sean, finally, NATO remembrances. What's your favorite NATO memory?
There were a few. I mean, I actually was with President when he went to the NATO summit 4 years ago. There were a couple like just personal ones. I mean, the flyover was amazing, but we had some pretty like amazing conversations about Article 5 in a very private manner that I thought were amazing. I mean, so there were the private moments and then the public moments. Like I said, I'll post on social media today on Instagram, but they did these flyovers and things that were spectacular. And so the pomp and circumstance, I'm now making a note, Mark. I'm going to.
All right,
Mark,
I'll tell you mine too.
Have one?
I have two. I went to one NATO summit with Bill when I covered the Clinton White House, and one night I had dinner with the legendary White House or political reporter Johnny Apple of
Yeah.
the New York Times. So I had other meals with them, but we had like just an epic, like 5-hour wine-fueled dinner with Johnny and a few others. But the other was, this is the pre-digital age, and NATO was all about swag, and it was all said OTAN, which is what they call it. And I remember walking into the swag room, and they had photos that the official photographers had taken of the world leaders, and they just had stacks like this of every picture, just a massive like conference table filled with stacks of multiple copies of all these photos of the world leaders. And I was like, even in the pre-digital age, I was like, who wants that? Who wants a photo of like Helmut Kohl or whoever it was?
Oh, listen, I love.
So you're saying I'm a loser? Because I find that kind of cool.
Oh, I took one of every one. I think I might have taken two of some. It just seemed like a big waste of money. You wonder where the NATO money goes to. It goes towards the photographer.
Well, the amount of crap that I have from random conferences, summits.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know, Sean, how much crap you have in the house.
That will never, there's, yeah.
Thank you all for watching. Again, I'll see you at 6 tonight, Sean at 6, and then tomorrow, the three of us will be back for another edition of this program that Dan calls
The Morning Meeting.
Have a great day, everybody.
I'm learning. I'm getting